What I love about 20X and what I love about just the AI age we're in is that I think now more than ever, a small startup that's got a really good idea might need to get into the FedRAMP ecosystem, like into the big boy club quicker than just like, hey, let's kind of muddy around here and sell to a bunch of small SaaS companies. And like after enough ARR, we'll like do this whole maturity journey, right? Like this is gonna take a while, but we're gonna start here. I think that there will be a need for a new company, like a startup, to need the level of security and compliance excellence to compete, and like whether they're going right for agencies, compete in this higher upper echelon of risk assurance. And that's where 20X, if I was being overly optimistic about it, I'd say 20X, because it's like an automated assessment and because they're gonna bring down the cost, which is significantly higher than the SOC 2 world we're currently in. It is significantly higher, but going back, it's like more attainable for someone who's real, who wants to be like, I'm competing for real companies and we have real security behind this. That's where I feel like 20X can, if done correctly, change the game.
What's up, everyone? We are feeling so good here in Lehi, Utah.
We're feeling so
The
good.
day before Thanksgiving, we are grateful.
Filled with gratitude.
We're filled with gratitude. We're here with our absolute homie, Jack Rumsey.
My family let me come to Lehi, Utah to do this podcast
I love it.
instead of pre-Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
And I'm running the turkey trot tomorrow in Denver.
let's go.
Nice.
So we're gonna get you with your last meal before that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Load up the carbs. I got 4 miles. I think it's 4 miles.
Oh, that's fine.
It's not horrible.
And it
Right?
ran in months. So it's going to be
More horrible.
I actually don't know if I could. That would be a lot for me.
It would hurt. Yeah.
I'd do it though. Maybe I'll do a turkey trot.
Yeah. We're going to keep the pace pretty moderate.
I haven't done that in a long time.
You know when I knew Kenny was going to be a good founder? This is a good story for the podcast. I met Kenny and he was telling me that he had your gallbladder removed, right? You'd have these crazy gallbladder attacks that would just like just wreck him, tons of pain. And to get through it, he would get on a treadmill and run until it stopped hurting. And I was like, I bet he could take I bet he's got what it takes to start a company.
I just had this theory that, just get it out, right? Get things moving. And it was really stupid because it almost killed me after the last night. Yeah, but I can see the hospital where I was at. It's right over there. And I was crawling on the hospital floor. I'm like, oh. And this guy's like, Kenny, is that you? And I'm like, oh, hey, I forget his name, but I know. He's like, those are some nice shoes. And I'm like, oh, dude, I'm in so much pain. It was the worst. Never going to have that again. I'll never have a gallbladder attack again.
Step outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Do things you don't want to do
Yeah.
for growth.
Yeah. So Jack joined me on a podcast a long time ago. I don't know what episode that was. What was that, Keaton? Do you remember what number? Nope, he doesn't.
It was early.
Yeah.
I want to say I might have been in the first 5 of that.
Oh, dude, for sure. For sure.
How did you guys meet originally?
Yeah, I think what happened was we were into OSCAL, like at Perilify, right? That was like kind
The
of...
only other person on the internet. No, you were the only person on the internet talking about it.
Yeah.
And I was just looking at it. And I was like, wait, you know what this is?
Yeah.
And I just shot him a cold, message on LinkedIn. And then he's like, wait, you know what this is? You want to talk about it on a podcast?
Yeah.
And I was like, I kind of know what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And which is like most people like that know what it is. They kind of know what it is and what it does. And most people think that it does a lot more than it actually does. And, I'm still a big fan of OSCAL. I think that it's already succeeded in some way, shape, and form already. We're using it, but hopefully, if it succeeds, great. And if it doesn't,
well, to the average consumer, if you will, it doesn't do anything. It's just a big JSON blob that you, if you want to build an app on top of it, it's very helpful. But when I saw it, knowing that we at Swimlane could potentially use it to build some sort of UI functionality around it. I was like, what are other people doing right now? And I think you got to be in the FedRAMP space to really care.
Yeah.
Yeah, the FedRAMP team took it pretty far, working really hard with, back with Dr. Yorga, like back in the day. And so they had really thought through how to put together control catalogs and this whole idea of control catalogs and profiles and how do parameters work together. And I still think that that's like the best way to do it. So everybody that is a Paramify customer is already using it, whether they like it or not. So it's good. Anyways, so we had a super weird intro, and that's great. But Jack Rumsey is awesome. He is the head of GRC at Swimlane, which is an AI automation platform for security operations, right? Yeah, it's one of the best and freaking awesome platform. And so security is really important for you guys. And so you're using Swimlane to implement security at Swimlane, and you're using various other tools. And because it's automation, that's a big hot area, right? For GRC. You even built an automation tool within Swimlane, right? For automating some of the compliance stuff that we do, right?
Yeah, we built a compliance audit readiness solution on top of Swimlane. It's not necessarily competing with a Vanta or a Drata and full service, but because our customers, so they're automating things like in a SOC, right? Alert triage, and it's at its core, it's a case management tool, but you have workspaces in that application, right? So you can do other things with Swimlane, and we figured, why not offer a place to at least house some control information? So we built it off the secure controls framework, and we just, you're able to, we took that giant Excel sheet and put it in our application. So it's like there's a UI behind it, and really that thing has every compliance framework. So it's super flexible for our customers that might be in the EU or looking to get into federal stuff. And why we did that is just, let's create cubby holes using these frameworks to put some stuff that they're already doing in Swimlane on the automation side, almost like placeholder. Like, hey, this control is actually being addressed by sometimes a very complex automation playbook, but starting to create that linkage. And where that idea becomes super, super hard is the customers have more complex environments. These are like Fortune 2000 SOCs or MSSPs. And so it's not straightforward. And that's where finishing that kind of tool becomes challenging, because it's never going to be a Vanta or a Drata where it's a couple API calls and it's like, boom, you passed this control. Have an auditor look at it. So for us, we called it compliance audit readiness, and it's very much an internal tool for these teams to start categorizing what they do on the automation side in Swimlane and putting it into a control catalog.
Yeah, it is complex, right? And enterprises get really, really different.
Super different. It's just so much different from talking to a SaaS startup.
Yeah.
On the compliance side.
Yeah, which is why like downstream, there's like automation makes a lot of sense because they're all using the same tool. They might be implementing it differently, but in terms of SOC 2, what it's looking for is like, hey, we're looking to make sure that MFA is enabled on all these users. Is it? And it's like, yeah, it totally is. Right. And then they're like, okay, great. You passed the test. Right. How did you get into GRC, man? Like, how did you do it? Cause like you're a skater, you're a musician, right? You're all over, you do a lot of different things, right?
You want the beginning? You want the mindset of how that initial choice was made? So I wanted to go into advertisement, I thought, when I was in college or whatever. And then I was taking a bunch of marketing classes, and all the classes were like, everything's going digital, whatever. And I was like, all right, well, let's learn about some computer stuff. And so I started, taking some coding classes or whatever in college. And then I kind of just shifted into security. So I was sort of scratching my head like, And then really, I hate to say it, it was just a money grab and right time, right place. So my first job was at State Farm corporate because I went to Illinois State. So State Farm's out there. And I had this mentor, if you will, who was running the IT audit program there. Nice. And there's just 0 out of college job applicants for that team. And he's like, hey, do you want a full-time job as a 5th year? Like, oh, you want a salaried job while you're still in college? And I was like, yeah, that sounds super chill. And I was like the richest 5th year college student of all time. And then, yeah, basically right time, right place. And what happens there is I got into it actually from a company. I think a lot of people in the last, let's call it 10 years, have got recruited into this IT audit space from taking that internship at the Big Four, right. Whether it's through the management consulting world or actually just the audit, like the accounting world, to be like, hey, we found a new service or we found a new practice to make us money, and it's this IT audit thing. So I think a lot of lost souls from the Big Four got an opportunity to join some IT assurance or IT audit teams from Big Four. And that's really where this started picking up steam. And so that's where I went into more of the KPMG. And then Shellman's was the first boutique, like, oh, this is a whole company just for the purpose of doing IT audit. And then, yeah, kind of went from there. It's just taking the next opportunity, it can get very complacent. I mean, any kind of audit job, when it's just churn and burn clients, you get really good at doing one thing, and it's writing a SOC 2 report, but you're just taking a peek into all of these companies being like, I don't really know anything about the underlying tech. And after so many years, you kind of it gets super mundane to be doing the same thing. So you want to get on the other side of the coin and be like, hey, I know enough about auditing. Let's try to actually spin this up for a company. Yeah. It's crazy that I'd have this dream, but at one point I was like, this would be so cool if I could start from scratch and build like a compliance program, because I would just do it the right way in the beginning. Yeah. and I didn't come in from scratch at Swimlane, but that's more or less what I got to do at Swimlane, that made me start liking my job, I think.
Yeah, when you're actually building things, you kind of do got to go through that painful period, though, to be really good at it. There's so much breadth, right, to the things that we cover. And yeah, you're not going to go in depth everywhere, but, every little bit of knowledge is cumulative and really helps out, right? So, yeah, so you got the breadth that you need going through those busy seasons, getting your reps, right? You get plenty of reps, right, doing that. And now you have to build it. What surprised you about that experience?
That whole thing about me wanting to go into advertisement, like at the beginning of everything, like in college, I'm like, well, you can learn about advertisement, whatever, that's great. Or you can be in an industry and be like, oh, the advertisement for security and GRC is horrible. It just is. And it's like, well,
super lame.
You
super
kind of,
low bar.
What I like and still like about compliance and GRC is there's actually something that needs to be fixed. Like there's improvements that need to be made, and it's becoming more and more saturated with people, and that's great. At the time I got into it, there was like no saturation and it was horrible. So it was like a good thing to resurrect. It was a good thing to grow. And being in a place like that where you're actually like, hey, this could be better. Let's try to make it better. It's a cool place to be. And then being another graphic designer in a sea of graphic, that kind of concept.
Being able to get top tier engineering talent on this, because we did, over a decade ago is when I got started on the GRC engineering stuff, right? I had my background doing security and, automating some of the controls testing, when I worked at PwC. But being able to attract like top tier engineering talent was like usually really tough, back then, because no one was like, oh, like that's not super sexy. That's not really cool. There's like just what was in demand. It really was ultimately, the need for assurance, right? With cloud getting so big, security is not a nice to have anymore. Now it's a must have. How do we enable trust between these different organizations, right? So you were kind of like at the beginning of that, right, where it's really starting to crescendo, and there's all sorts of interest, right, in cloud assurance, and when you got started there. So what are some of the things that you noticed about that, right? Back then, when you were doing Shellman audits, Shellman's a top tier company, and they were able to like charge a premium, right, for their services, right? It's like 100%. You get the best people doing those audits. They spend a lot. They do really high quality work, and that still continues today. But now, with automation, some of the value goes away from the audit, because you've got this platform that's, automating some of the checks that an auditor would do, maybe service levels. Yeah. So what's changing there?
Yeah, and this also hits on the saturation thing. So when SOC 2 was becoming very popular with cloud or whatever, you have big time companies needing to provide assurance. Like you have Salesforce needing to get a SOC 2, and you have limited providers. So that's why the price of SOC 2 has gone down, because at first it was this, it's almost how we would think of FedRAMP being today. That was the SOC 2 10 years ago, because there was less saturation, and it was like real companies that meant something actually needing to provide some kind of audit assurance. So that's what SOC 2 meant back then. And as more people enter the space, so that's 1 trillion SaaS companies, right? So they're entering the space, and then more audit firms are entering the space. And it was kind of chilling for a while, but then, Drata, SecureFrame, Vanta, when they entered the space, that's when the commodity thing started. And that's now really where we're at today, where because of all the saturation, obviously things get cheaper, which is great. I actually never thought a SOC 2 should cost $100,000. I think that, to think about that now is crazy. But now we're at this race to the bottom, where it's like people are handing this stuff away for free, and you have Troy Fine on like LinkedIn screaming at people like, you can't deliver a SOC 2 report in 5 hours for $200. Like that's just, so the entire integrity, I'm preaching to the choir here, and in the GRC echo chamber, everyone is aware of this problem, and people are shouting at the AICPA like that's going to change something. But what happens is it's just saturation, and like it's an incentives game. So at first SOC 2 was coveted because it was like important companies needing it, and needing it because they wanted to get important customers. And since it was like more of a circle of people who mattered, it was like, hey, this is a big deal, let's charge money for it. Now it's just like a dime a dozen. So where's the new, bar? Where's the new standard of excellence? And I think we're just trying to figure that out as an industry, because who actually gatekeeps quality? It's a TPRM team of an enterprise. It's somebody trying to get a vendor through the door. SOC 2 is still relevant. I'm not going to sit here and say SOC 2 doesn't matter. I get asked for SOC 2 reports from prospects and customers every week still. It still exists. Have I ever been asked, I've said this before, this is not a new take from me, but have I ever been asked about the quality of the firm, the underlying tool we use to get it, any of that stuff? No. I actually still get asked, hey, this isn't recent, this is from May. I'm like, well, you're not going to get a new one until next May, because that's what a SOC 2 report is retro. So I think there's just a lack of education from the incentive gatekeepers, right?
Well, and to your point, if life's an incentive game, like these third-party risk management teams, if you look at their incentive, they need to get they need to get software into the hands of whoever the company's trying to buy it and protect the company as much as possible and keep their job. Those are their incentives. So if they need to get the software and they can show they're protecting the company by accepting something that's industry standard, who of them is going to be like, no, I won't take it?
Yeah.
Because they're going to get so much pushback from the CRO or whoever in the company's trying to buy that software to say like, what? Everyone takes a SOC 2. We want to buy this, just accept it. And so it puts it in a weird spot where it's like, who's going to make the stand actually fix it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then because of that, there's been a lot of add-on noise. This is not new either, but that's where the security questionnaires come in. That's where this added on top of, well, we can't really trust the integrity of this thing that the whole industry is saying is like kind of the baseline acceptance. Like we should be able to trust it, but we can't. We know we can't. So let's add the questionnaires. Let's add the trust center. That's a whole different topic, but let's add these add-on things to try to make it a little bit better than just accepting a SOC 2. Now we've created industries of noise where in reality, the third-party assurance audit model is still a good model. I mean, at the end of the day, you have a third party that's supposed to be highly credible, have integrity, saying, hey, we've done a thorough assessment and here's your stamp of approval and here is everything it covers. That model should still work.
Mm-hmm.
The industry needs to find where that new baseline is.
Right.
And we are in the dark ages right now of understanding where that's going to be, because it's not SOC 2 and honestly, it's not ISOs. Those are good. I've tried to explain the value of ISO a lot, just selfishly, because I got ISOs.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot about it, but I'm like, that's not going to save it.
Yeah.
CSA star is not going to save it. So it's like, it's really, what's the new level of third-party assurance that has a quality benchmark that the whole industry can get behind?
Yeah. We talk about this all the time. Like we were mentioning, what do I do to get these exceptions off the report? What's the one exception that's showing up on my automation tool? And it's like, oh, you don't do, I need evidence that you're doing performance reviews, with your security team. And you're like, okay, like why do I have that? Oh, it's because your automation tool said you need to do performance reviews on your automation team. And you're like, okay, well, yeah, we don't do that. So just remove that. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And it's like, I got a clean SOC 2 because I had my environment like ready to go because this is like the millionth audit I've done. So I'm like, okay, everything's good to go. I hear nothing for 6 weeks. And then the follow-up question is about performance reviews because that was light evidence. And I'm like, well, we use Culture Amp and it's like a one-on-one confidential discussion. Like, I'm not going to give you guys that info. And they're like, well, we need it to, prove out the performance review control. I was like, does it even need to be in the report? They're like, well, no, you can make your own controls here. So I'm like, scrap it. I don't care.
Yeah.
And that's how a SOC, that's a standard SOC 2 engagement in the mid-tier market.
Yeah.
Not the coal fires, not the Shellmans. They're still doing a good job, but I think more and more people are like, I don't need to pay that for them to do a good job when my customers are going to accept the person who just ghosted me for 6 weeks, asked me about a performance review, and gave me a report for literally a fraction of the price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just funny how some of these controls get in there, right? And what does the terms of service, right? Do you have terms of service which explain to the users, what they're supposed to do? And I'm like that's gonna actually work, right? But it's crazy because we do have a lot of fluff in some of those requirements, and it just multiplies on itself, right? Yeah. So I guess that's what's exciting about the future of what's possible with automation right now today is you can move away from that. You can find right away what's failing. Does the CEO care that we don't know all the details of performance reviews from a security perspective? No, they don't care, right? We don't talk about those things at board meetings. right? You do.
And I think automation, like GRC engineering and control automation, is still very much in its building phase. Like, obviously these tools provide it, but it's not until the trust center adopts it in a transparent way where you can get a real-time picture of an environment. We are so far away from that, and we'll continue to be away from that until, again, there's pushback from the end customer saying, wait, you don't have a trust center that has real time. And I know it exists. I know SafeBase and like Wistic have the trust centers with the green dots, but that's not real. That's not, it's a good idea. It's like a prototype of what I'm talking. What exists today is like a mock-up of what I'm actually talking about, because you can go behind the scenes and like flip random stuff and turn that to green. And it doesn't actually tell you anything, but it's a good idea. Like that's the idea. It just needs to be real, but there needs to be somebody with authority actually saying, okay, this is how you do it for real. And we're only going to accept, you know, an automated assessment that's kind of real time on your trust center. We're only going to accept that as due diligence collateral.
Yeah.
So that we're very far away from that. Very far away from that.
Yeah, the thing is when we say like, hey, MFA is enabled for privileged users, like that's like a control you might see. And so they go, oh yeah, like privileged users, what do I want to see? Oh yeah, AWS, MFA, like look, green check mark, except for this one, what's that one? Oh, yeah, that's an exception. But the trust center, you've marked that as an exception, right? So you can say like, hey, don't flag this as red, right?
It literally will be like, don't put any red on the public facing trust centers. Like, all right, yes, no, why would we do that?
Yeah, and then the TPRM team is not going to know like, okay, great. Now what do I have to do? Hey, is there anything else like that I need to look at for privileged users? They're like, well, okay, I'll go ask them. And then the person who wants the tool is like, hey, Jamie, what's going on, dude? What's up? But like, are we good to go or not? Oh, well, I'm just on this one control and it says like privileged users, like, okay, dude, like, and then there's like a meeting and it escalates. And I've been in those meetings before where things escalate to the head of legal, right, sales at like Adobe. And I'm like, oh, okay, actually, like, you know, and there's a lot of pressure.
I mean, imagine if you were a restaurant.
Right.
And you know, they use Cisco or something and they get all their ingredients. Imagine being like, oh, well, Cisco kind of should be handling the quality control of all of these different things they're giving us. No, I'm actually going to go to all the farms and ask them a bunch of high-level questions and make sure all the farms that Cisco delivered from are good to go. That's like what we're doing here, which is why I go back to the third-party assurance, the audit model is the only thing that makes sense.
FDA.
Like it's one thing. There shouldn't be any other questions asked about it necessarily.
Right.
From like baseline due diligence, sure, you can ask some product specific questions, but it should be robust enough to not have to do any other add-on activities. The third-party assurance report should be like, this is all we need. And that's, to me, that's FedRAMP, right? So I just saw a post. I saw a hilarious post and it's genius. Forget who it was from. So whoever, credit to the GRC echo chamber, but it was basically like, okay, you're assessing vendors. Instead of asking for a security questionnaire, a SOC 2, if that vendor is on the FedRAMP marketplace, assume that all of that other stuff is good. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. So if this company, and there's not many, but if this company has gone through a FedRAMP authorization,
especially at like the high level,
I think we can all agree that that's hard to do. And it's because there's real governance behind it. And it's not easy to get into that marketplace. And you have to show like an SSP, like there's a million things you have to do. If they're on that, that should be your only level of due diligence. Right. Why even ask for all of that? Because it's lesser quality to be asking for these other things. And that's what I'm talking about. But it's just right now, until we see what happens with FedRAMP 20X, right now, it's just not feasible for everyone in this industry, everyone in this ecosystem to be getting a FedRAMP authorization.
So 20x maybe. We had it early on a few times with clients where they would send they were signing up for Paramify. They'd send us asking for security docs and SOC 2 report, which we didn't have. And we'd be like, oh, well, we're FedRAMP high ready. And they'd be like, yeah, but we need to see your SOC 2 report. And we're like, I don't think you understand.
Lack of lack of education there too.
And then they just saw, like, they peek into our environment. They're like, oh, okay. Yeah, we're good.
Exactly.
Never hurt us in that way. But like, absolutely. That's what's so exciting about the potential, right, of 20x is because to a fault, no one had FedRAMP, right? I mean, not our fault, right? But like sponsorship is super hard, especially in the era of Doge, right? Like, things need to be super efficient. And so we're excited. We're like at the finish line. We're ready to go. And then all of a sudden, hey guys, sorry, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer. And you're just like, dude, should that be an incentive for us not to implement great security capability? Absolutely not. We should make it achievable. And that is what the vision of 20x is. So the vision that P has is that, in 3 years from now, 5 years from now, there's tens of thousands of software solutions, right? Cloud solutions that, government agencies are able to use, right? And that doesn't happen today. Or they are using them, they're just making exceptions, and they have this like weird, back office type, gymnastics that you got to do to make it happen, and you got to do on-prem solutions. But it's just ridiculous. And the problem is that yes, there are a lot of requirements, and the way that FedRAMP was implemented in the past was based on this model that, yeah, we're going to implement this software, and we're going to spend a lot of time on the security architecture implementing the software, and then we're going to ship that software off to sea, and we're going to fire all our devs, as Pete said, right? But that's not been the way that software is developed for, since I've been, for 2 decades, right? It's not how it happens, right? It's continuously improving. It's the DevOps model. And that is not reflected in the way that FedRAMP was delivered. So we've been doing FedRAMP for, almost, it's been a long time, right? That we've been doing like what is now the Rev 5 process. Incredibly cumbersome, right? To have thousands of documents that you have to manage. And completely, like, not really totally necessary, which Paramify kind of proved out with the way that we were able to kind of speed along ATOs for our clients, like for, really, really big, complicated enterprise clients, right? There is a way that you can do it, but it starts with understanding, how all of this works. You get really simple with it to start with, but
yeah. I have a question for both of you guys. So with 20x, since you're both risk management experts, wizards, with FedRAMP 20x, so it relies on a trust center, right? It's part of the phase 2 requirement for moderate that they want to see it in trust center format. And I think those trust centers will be aligned to what you're saying, where it will actually show like, oh, if you've got issues, like it's going to show you on the trust center and you can click into it and look at it all. And the reason that works in FedRAMP 20x is because the agencies are used to doing actual risk management, where they have a vendor and they're reviewing POAMs every month, and they're seeing that there are issues, and they're saying, we're choosing to accept that risk, we're fine with it. Yeah. On a commercial side, that's not the case, which is why the trust centers are kind of fake, because the commercial companies don't have real people accepting the risk. And so they just want to see all the thumbs up. Yeah. So they can just say, like, do you think that the commercial industry trends that same direction, where you actually have somebody who says, yeah, there are issues and we choose to accept that risk, we're good?
Yeah. I'll say what I think. What I think it needs to get to is something that's more like, if you go to like status.openai.com, you can see all of their services, and you can see when there was a flaw or when there was an issue with one of their services. You go to status.aws.com or whatever it is. It's actually quite transparent, right? To see,
those pages are weirdly transparent.
Yeah, something bad happened, and this stuff kind of happens, in business, and we're trying to be open with you. Hey, what's going on? I can't connect. It turns out if I go to status, it turns out that there's an issue here. That doesn't happen, right, with security, because we've made it taboo, right, to like miss something, right? To fail like a control. But the reality is that there are complete failures like all over the place. There's things that we miss, and it's a continuous improvement, right? So that is kind of my goal. My dream would be like, hey, let's normalize having control failures, right? But if you can get to a point where it's like, hey, this control failed, but you can keep it in the context of like, hey, we're working on it. Obviously, if you say, hey, we failed this control and that's okay, it's okay if you do something about it, right? So I would like, trust centers to go more towards that way, which is like, what our plan is, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the commercial trust center is not going to get to the same level as what we're thinking about in FedRAMP. I don't see it because there's no guidance. I mean, we're just, not to talk shit like and call them minnows, but like we're just in a pond of minnows with these kind of compliance automation products and trust centers. Yeah. And it is fulfilling a market need for SaaS companies selling to other small SaaS companies. There's like this ecosystem of like up and coming SaaS companies that they're really, I mean, the risk is actually significantly lower. Yeah. What I love about 20X and what I love about just the AI age we're in is that I think now more than ever, a small startup that's got a really good idea might need to get into the FedRAMP ecosystem, like into the big boy club quicker than just like, hey, let's kind of muddy around here and sell to a bunch of small SaaS companies. And like after enough ARR, we'll like do this whole maturity journey, right? Like this is going to take a while, but we're going to start here. I think that there will be a need for a new company, like a startup, to need the level of security and compliance excellence to compete, and like whether they're going right for agencies, compete in this higher upper echelon of risk assurance. And that's where 20X, if I was being overly optimistic about it, I'd say 20X, because it's like an automated assessment and because they're going to bring down the cost, which is significantly higher than the SOC 2 world we're currently in. It is significantly higher, but going back, it's more attainable for someone who's real, who wants to be like, I'm competing for real companies and we have real security behind this. That's where I feel like 20X can, if done correctly, change the game. Because I agree with you that there's too much bureaucracy and like, oh, did they get an ATO? Or like you're relying too much of, we've got good security on the outcome of an agency uses you. But if you've got a really good way to assess security in that program that's automated and it's repeatable, that becomes a great new baseline where it's like, it doesn't really matter if it didn't go well politically with the agency or the deal, but we actually got through the rigorous check mark and we have that badge of honor to show it. Like we're at least ready. And now, because the program is rigorous, we have to show rigorous continuous monitoring, CONMON.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's real assurance there. And I think more than ever, that's going to be the need for even like these AI companies are going to need to do that.
100%.
The other thing I love about 20X is for a long time, because FedRAMP had such a huge barrier to entry, the companies that could afford to do it and could afford to hire somebody that knew how to do it, it was like a great moat for them to like protect their business and have these fat, juicy contracts. But as more companies get into FedRAMP, not only does the government get better software, those bigger companies will actually get pushed to develop new features faster. So their products will also actually get better. They'll go acquire a lot of the smaller startups. It'll generate more. Like, I think overall it is a great thing to disrupt like that kind of like cozy insiders club with a bunch of upstarts. I think it'll end up great.
Yeah. There's really no way to succeed in the old way, right? Like we've been doing it for 15 years, right? And we had less than, It was
400.
we had less than we like around 400 companies or 400 services that are listed in the FedRAMP marketplace, right?
Yeah.
Under Rev 5. And, it's not going to change, right? If we do, let's make it harder. Let's add more controls, right? So like DOD, the SRG, right? We added 177 NSS control requirements, right? For, for IL5, right? So what is that? Is it entirely different than what's existing in your program? No, not really. It's just more documentation, maybe a few different parameters that change. But if you go and ask, hey, is your security program like significantly changing now that you have to do those new controls in IL5? And they'll say like, not really, right? And that should tell you everything that you need to know. It's not going to succeed, right, if we don't change it. And so there is this tendency, right, for people to want things to stay the same because they've got great businesses. You're charging crazy premiums, right, for a great business. And what are you charging for? It's like, well, I know how to navigate the dark arts of FedRAMP, right? I have this experience. I know how agencies work, right? And it's this secret knowledge, right? We see this like some of the like stuff we read on LinkedIn, from influencers is like talking about like, hey, here's the latest guidance from the federal government, and they're talking, some little clause in a legal document, like, oh, what does this mean? And they're talking about it like it's interesting or soap opera, right? It's not, right? It's just like, it's ridiculous. And so if you have to say, you know what, I hate that stuff, I don't want to do it, and if people don't want to understand it, that moat around like understanding the dark arts, that will continue. And like, so they'll be able to milk the inefficiencies for profit, which I think is, like good, like, do a business.
You're talking about CMMC here, right?
CMMC, well, yeah, I mean, it could be anything. It could be FedRAMP too, right? If your business is built on like milking the inefficiencies, in an old process that's actually not adding value, I think that sucks. I think that sucks, and that's got to change. And if FedRAMP 20X doesn't succeed, I think that's a bummer for like the entire industry. It will be a huge step backward. And the good news is that it's totally going to succeed. It's what the government wants, right? It's what the market wants, right?
Yeah. And I think that not exactly what you're saying there, but I also think sort of milking the inefficiencies is what the slew of new compliance tools have done to the SOC 2 industry. And I don't judge them. I don't hate them for it, because it might take some time, but it makes everybody better in that they saw an opportunity that SOC 2 is actually just a sales enabler. Right. And how can we make that super efficient for companies to get? And like, let's get rich milking kind of a broken thing. It's great.
We all would have done the same thing.
And now over time, but like, again, we are on this spiral. We're on this spiral to zero with I think the SOC 2 industry, in that like the saturation has caused, just read any of Troy's posts, like, right? Just read, like, once you start charging pennies for something that I know for a fact companies were paying $100,000 back in the day. I mean, not really back in the day, but like a couple years ago, paying $100,000 for, you're going to sell it for $250. That is just showing the general industry that is no longer of value. So because they got rich doing it, that's great. They exploited like, hey, this isn't good enough, and like, let's milk it until there's nothing left. There's no more water left. There's still a lot of milking to be done. I don't think that this is still a cash cow. This is still gonna make money, but it's going to that direction where I think there's a wealth gap, if you will. There's like it's growing between like the real and like the sales enabler compliance world. I think that gap, and there's nothing really right now to fill that gap, because what is there going to be a new governance body? Is there going to be you can make a new standard, whatever, but it's really the federal government has the muscle to enforce what they want. And the AICPA, it seems like they have they don't have the leverage to resurrect what's going on.
It is like somewhat supposed to be governed by the SEC, right? But like it's hard, right?
Literally was 4 years ago when I was building an enterprise sales team at another tech company, and we came across our first accounts that were like, "Hey, do you guys have your SOC 2? We can't use you if you don't." And so I went to our CFO and I was like, "Hey, we need to get a SOC 2," and he was like, "Oh, it's too expensive. Just don't." Literally said, "Don't sell to those clients." That was 4 years ago. Now it's $250. That's really fast. How quick that whole thing changed. I mean, $250. I would have put it on a P card. I would have paid for it personally.
We will have.
It's not really $250. I think I saw some kind of special on one of these tools that they were giving it out for $250, which and that, I think that might be rage bait, because they're really honing into this thing. Like this is just like, we are in a mad dash to the bottom here, and let's capitalize. I'm like, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Throw AI on your tool. Like, be able to generate a whole SOC 2 report in 5 hours. I think that's great. And like, hey, if a customer still accepts it.
Well, and shout out to all the groups out there who, amid all of that, are maintaining good quality and kind of holding the line on like how it should be done. Because that's tough when competitors are willing to skirt the limits a little bit and sacrifice quality to get the deal. It's hard to be the one saying like, no, we're going to do it the right way. You know what I mean?
If there is no difference between a high quality SOC 2 report and a low quality one, right? Like we know that there was the person doing this really spent like less than an hour on it, and here's the SOC 2. If it's just to check the box, then it's not going to get better. It's not going to solve. I mean, yeah, those firms need to pivot into something else. Right? Because if I'm just buying a sticker so that I can make a deal, it's not going to get better.
Yeah.
It's not going to get better, right? So where assurance is important, where assurance is important, there's got to be something else.
Yep.
And so I really do think, and I think everybody should be hoping that 20X succeeds. It will. Because we've seen it work, right? And we're seeing it work for us. It's helping us get better. I'm really freaking excited. I know that there's a path. We've seen numerous companies now succeed implementing it, and it's going to work. I really do think it is. And for the haters out there, right, that don't think that it's going to work, I think they're going to be wrong.
I really like your idea about praising the companies that are holding the line of quality. Like, if we're like, let's say we're not in this FedRAMP world that we're talking about, we're still in this kind of SOC 2 ISO world, but people who have real TPRM and are actually just grilling the software vendors that they use, those people should be lifted up. Those companies that have those programs should be lifted up. Let's say it's like the Okta of the world, or like even Adobe or something. And everyone in that circle knows they're doing an amazing job of pushing back on vendors, making sure they're true to like, hey, we're not just going to look at a SOC 2. We actually, it goes past a security questionnaire. We're talking with this company's CISO. We're making sure that this is secure. That's who other companies should be looking to. What tools are Okta using? What tool are Adobe using? Instead of going on a vendor website and seeing a bunch of logos flash like down here, where it's like, where'd you get these logos from? Are they actually using you? As a form of, well, I guess if I see Okta down there, I mean, I guess this is reputable. I mean, they're saying they have all these big logos. We should actually be going to large orgs that have established and very transparent kind of third-party practices, and being like, what software do they use for HR? That's the gold standard now.
Right. And that's what happened.
Champions of the industry. I mean, easier said than done. I don't really know the politics that go into that, but like that would be the way. Like, if I was just like, what are the best of breed? I would go to the people who I know that are doing way more than I am to do third-party due diligence. I will use what they use.
It is trust, right? So if they trust you, you know, they're going to buy from you, right? And if, you know, I think in those bigger companies, you know, they're actually really concerned about, you know, the risk, right, of doing. I sent out something today, you know, to the team. I said, hey, please don't just flippantly just add this SaaS company and like start, you know, we have a process that we have to follow, but it takes a lot of vigilance. It takes a lot of care, right? So, anyway, all right, man. This was awesome, dude. Let's do it again, dude. Let's do it like.
Thanks for having me out in Lehigh.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Maybe
a beautiful day.
A regular thing. Well, tell the people where they can find you.
I still got the Substack,
which I love. Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
I actually made a YouTube page too. I've yet to post, but I'm thinking about getting into not podcast style, but some short form. So it's still have GRC Destroyer at Substack.com, and it's been, you know, it takes a lot of energy to find something I'm actually excited to write about, but when it happens, I make some pretty engaging posts, and I'm hoping that I can channel some of that into videos too. But it's GRC Destroyer.
I love it.
And I think another thing, make some t-shirts.
GRC Destroyer.
Yeah, I've been working on a t-shirt design to ramp up the marketing of the blog soon here, so watch out for that. I'm just gonna send you guys some t-shirts probably.
Yeah. We'll give you a t-shirt too.
We'll trade t-shirts.
That's why we start tech companies. That's why we start anything, is the swag behind it.
Many times.
Our swag is dope.
It's dope.
Our wallets without.
You see that? You got it on?
Oh.
See, I like that. It's minimal.
Yeah.
That's what we love. Yeah, my auditor, David Foreman from Mastermind, created a whole swag store. Because now he's doing like a lot of auditor training and stuff, and like the brand's kind of good. Unbelievable t-shirts. And I'm like, did you start an entire audit firm just so you could make a streetwear brand?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're going to do the same thing.
Yeah. That's the
store,
that's
dude.
The eventual pivot.
Yes. Yeah. I always wanted to have my own skate store, right? So it's going to be great.
Spin it up.
Love it.
A pleasure as always.
Yep.
Been a pleasure. Thanks for coming out. Thanks, everybody.
See you, man.